Have you ever sent what you thought was the perfect, witty text, only to see those three little dots appear and then just vanish? Ugh. If you've ever felt like modern dating is a game where you just don't know the rules, trust me, you are in the right place. We are about to decode the entire thing.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. Because we have all been there, right? You're just stuck in that digital limbo wondering what went wrong. It's the perfect example of the kind of confusion we're going to unravel today. Why do people ghost or breadcrumb or play all these games? What is really going on underneath all the swiping and the texting? All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the unspoken social scripts that we're all following without even knowing it. Then, we'll get into the actual hardwired chemistry of attraction, what's happening in your brain. And finally, we're going to build a practical playbook that you can actually start using tonight. So first up, let's explore this pretty wild idea that a lot of our interactions, especially in dating, are not nearly as spontaneous as we think they are. What if I told you that you've been following a script this whole time and you didn't even realize it? So this is where it gets really interesting. A psychiatrist named Eric Berne had this incredible insight. He said that instead of having direct, honest, intimate conversations, we often play what he called games. You know, like the classic hard-to-get game. These are basically routines we act out, a lot of the time unconsciously, to get some kind of hidden psychological reward.
Let me give you an example I bet you will recognize instantly. Okay, picture this. Your friend is complaining about their dating life, and you say, "Hey, why don't you try a new app?" And they go, "Yes, but I've already tried them all." So you suggest, "Well, what about joining a club or a class?" And they say, "Yes, but I just don't have the time." Sound familiar?
So what is really going on there? The person playing this game, they're not actually looking for a solution. The secret payoff is to prove that their problem is completely unsolvable, which lets them off the hook and gets them a whole lot of sympathy. So next time you feel like you're in that loop, try saying something like, "Wow, that sounds really tough. What do you think you're going to do about it?" See what happens. And get this, Berne actually identified the roles we tend to fall into in these games. You've got the victim, who always seems to be saying, "Nothing ever works out for me." Then there's the rescuer, who just loves to jump in and fix things with, "Have you tried?" And finally, the persecutor, who gets fed up and assigns blame. Recognizing which role you tend to slip into, that's the first step to being able to just step out of the game entirely. And it's not just Berne who saw this pattern. You have Robert Greene in The Art of Seduction talking about something really similar with archetypes like the siren. These are powerful roles that tap into these really deep-seated fantasies. The point is, whether it's games or archetypes, once you start to see these scripts, you can finally understand what's really being said underneath it all.
But you know, there's another whole layer to this. Because underneath all of those social games we play, our brains are running a much older, way more powerful program. So let's talk about the biology of attraction.
So there's this brilliant anthropologist, Helen Fisher, and she explains that the feeling of intense romantic love isn't really an emotion at all. It's a basic human drive. It comes from the same part of the brain that tells you when you're thirsty or hungry. And it's fueled by this potent chemical cocktail, a big hit of dopamine that makes you crave them, norepinephrine that gives you all that energy and focus, and low serotonin, which is what can lead to that obsessive, can't stop thinking about them feeling. You know, to deal with this incredibly complex world, our brains create these little mental shortcuts. Think about when you see a big red sales sign. Click, you see the sign. Whir, you automatically think, ooh, it must be a good deal. The psychologist Robert Cialdini calls these our Click-Whir responses. They're these automatic behaviors that let us just bypass slow, rational thought.
You are not going to believe this story from Cialdini's book, Influence. There was a jewelry store that was really struggling to sell its turquoise pieces. The owner got so frustrated, she left a note for her staff telling them to cut the price in half. But they misread it, and they doubled the price instead. And you know what happened? The entire collection sold out, like immediately. The tourist brains just use that shortcut. Click, it's expensive, whir, it must be good quality.
So that makes you wonder, right? What are these triggers in the world of dating? What are your own personal Click-Whir responses when it comes to who you're attracted to? What are the shortcuts your brain uses to decide if someone is desirable? Well, it turns out they're things we see all the time. Social proof? Yep, that's that photo of you laughing with a big group of friends. Scarcity? A bio that kind of hints you're busy and not on the app 24/7. Authority? Maybe a picture of you killing it in a presentation at work. Confidence? Humor? These are all super powerful triggers you can use to make your profile absolutely magnetic.
Okay, so we've got the hidden scripts, and we know about the brain's automatic triggers. So now what do we do with all this? It's time to build your playbook. How do we take these insights and actually use them to connect with people in the world of digital dating? And here's the crazy paradox of modern dating, right? Ian Leslie points this out in his book, Curious. We have more choice than any generation in history. And what do? We swipe on the same type of person over and over, we ask the same boring questions, and then we wonder why dating feels like such a grind. The way to break out of this rut is something so simple. Genuine curiosity. Seriously, instead of swiping to find a type, try swiping to find something that sparks a real question. So you see a picture of them in front of some weird-looking statue. Ask them, okay, what is the story behind that statue? It looks like it has a secret. This one little shift makes you instantly memorable and turns a boring interview into a fun, shared exploration.
This whole idea of standing out, it actually has a name from the book The Game. It's called peacocking. And no, it doesn't mean wearing some ridiculous hat. In the digital world, your profile is your peacock tail. It's about showcasing what makes you uniquely you and uniquely interesting. Your passion for old movies, your weird sense of humor, your obsession with rock climbing, that is what makes you stand out from the sea of boring profiles.
So the main goal here is to just break that boring script. Instead of the sterile question-answer routine, how are you? Good, you? Aim for playful banter, inside jokes, and questions that make them think. You want to create a conversation that feels like a shared adventure, not a job interview. Okay, so let's make this real. I want to give you a little mission for the next 24 hours. Just pick one of these. Try to notice one social game you might be playing. Or find one profile and ask one question that comes from pure curiosity. Or find one small way to peacock authentically. The first step is always the hardest, so just start small. You can do this. So, if you boil all this down, what have we learned? I want you to think of yourself as three things: a detective, an advertiser, and an explorer. As a detective, you recognize the hidden scripts. As an advertiser, you understand the triggers of attraction. And as an explorer, you use genuine curiosity to make real connections. And I'll just leave you with this final thought. For a really long time, I was so focused on trying to be the right person on a date that I kind of forgot to just be myself. But when I shifted my focus to just being the most interesting person in the room, which really just means being my authentic self, everything changed. I started having way more fun, making deeper connections, and attracting people who were actually interested in me. So what would change for you? Thanks so much for watching.